is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Had a little three-gamer last night. No show yesterday. We are back. This is actually, for the first time, there's a full slate that we're breaking down less than 11 games and more than 5, I think, since the first week of the season. This is the sweet spot. 7, 8, 9 games is a sweet spot for like the show. We can go a little bit more in depth. We're not rushing. And then 4 games, you're just kind of like filling time going on rants. But this is a good one for y'all, for us. Had Halloween yesterday. Joining me, you see my wife was busy, got Christmas up already, but joining me to break it down, some Cliffy, what's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot. If you look at the schedule for the month of October, there was one day where it wasn't 5 games or fewer or 10 games or more, and it was a Sunday. Anyways, that's behind us. We have a more normal schedule up ahead. That's always nice. Very interesting 8-gamer here tonight because there is a ton of news. There's a lot of players injured players returning, big lineup shakeups, power play formations changing. Like there are a lot of moving parts on this slate. So feels like most of the news is out already, but that's why we always say check the Discord before lock to see if anything else pops up, because there's sure to be some other changes between this show and when the slate locks at 7 p.m.
Yeah, there is a lot of news, and hopefully I will remember all of it, which I won't, but that's okay. Jake said he's manually updating some lines here, and we'll get an update here shortly. We appreciate the hard work there, Jake, but we should get into this slate. So let's do that. I don't know why I'm talking like an idiot, but St. Louis Blues with a 3 total heading into Columbus. Our Columbus Blue Jackets with a 3.5 total. Highest total on the slate besides the Oilers, which we will get to later. Columbus going Marchenko, Monahan, Voronkov, Fantilli, Jenner, Johnson. Blues still doing their Blues thing. Buchnevich, Shen, Snuggerud, Holloway, Suter, Sundqvist, Kyrou, Dvorsky, Joseph. Dvorsky now in the player pool. Actually, like the Suter, Holloway, Sundqvist line the other night, if you played them, would have been optimal with Winnipeg 1, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. They actually look good, but, I don't mind them. But there's 2 lines for the Blues here at 10,700. They're both coming in like 5-6% owned. I think, I don't really like going nuts on road teams. This is one of those spots that I do have some interest, though. Obviously, we'll talk about some other like there's a few teams with over a 3 road total here. I don't mind the Blues here because as good as the Blue Jackets have been offensively, they have not been great defensively. Greaves has been fine. Mr. Lickens has been fine as well. So it's kind of like a dealer's choice here for you, depending on which line you want to use. I'm fine with Shen, Buchnevich, Snuggerud, fine with Suter, Holloway, Sundqvist. You get 2 on one unit, 2 on the other unit for each line. Doesn't really matter. The Blues power play without Neighbors is an issue. I mean, it's an issue with Neighbors, but it's more of an issue without Neighbors. So you're not really stacking the Blues for the power play anyway. I'd lean towards the Suter, Holloway, Sundqvist line just because P.S. Suter has played well all season. That's where I would go on the St. Louis side. I'm not saying, go out and play a $10,700 line and then, build around it. I'm saying is if you happen to power play stack Edmonton and you need a cheap 2-man, like Suter, Sundqvist is probably where I would start looking. On the Blue Jackets side, there's really not that much ownership on Columbus here, despite a 3.5 total. That top line, the Monahan line coming in at 5%, the Fantilli line coming in at 5.3% projected own. And, the Blues penalty kill sucks. The Blues goaltending has been poor, to say the least. I'm just trying to be nice. And also, with all these new line combinations and, Logan Mailloux is out, but that doesn't really matter. Tucker Kessel is still the third pair. I have a lot of interest in Columbus here at that ownership and the price. If you want to go to Marchenko, Monahan, Voronkov, perfectly fine. They've been good again this season. Almost 100 minutes, 3.3 expected goals for, 4.5 actual. Fully correlated against a poor penalty kill. If you can't afford them and you're looking for a filler line, I think Fantilli, Jenner, Johnson is good for a filler line at 12-8. You know what I mean? They've been fine in over 50 minutes together. Fantilli's been shooting the puck. You get Ken Johnson on the top power play unit. Boone Jenner plays a lot of minutes. So depending on the price point, I would lean Monahan, Marchenko, Voronkov. But again, if you're down to the nitty gritty and you need a 12,000-ish line for your final stack, I wouldn't mind Columbus too. So I think it would be the Suter line. That's more of I wouldn't say MME only, but it's I would reserve them for doing expensive power play stuff. And my favorite line in this game is Columbus 1.
Yeah. So I agree with you on St. Louis. For me, it's the Suter line for a couple reasons. One, like you said, P. Suter's probably been their best player so far this season. There's a reason why they're moving him all around the lineup, and it's not to get him going, it's to get their wingers going, right? So I've been impressed with him, number one. Number two, St. Louis's power play has generally not been very good. Their best power play combination has been Suter and Snuggerud. They actually generate a high volume of shots. They actually generate a high rate of expected goals. They actually score, which St. Louis really doesn't do on the power play very much. And the Columbus penalty kill is not very good either. That Columbus PK so far this season, 8th most shot attempts against per 60, 5th most goals against per 60, 4th most expected goals against per 60. It's a pretty good power play matchup for St. Louis. And, you get Suter and Snuggerud on that second power play unit now. They're not playing together at 5-on-5, but Sundqvist is, and he's on that power play unit with them. So, you get the better power play if you go with the Suter, Sundqvist, Holloway line, and they're fairly cheap. And I'm not, Columbus just isn't that great defensively. They do give up a ton of shots. So I'm not even MME only. The thing with St. Louis is there's just not a ton of expensive lines tonight. Basically the only reason to play a cheap St. Louis line is if you're playing Edmonton.
Yeah.
Right. So, if you are playing some sort of Edmonton stack, then you want to look at the Blues. And for me, it's pretty easily Holloway, Suter, and Sundqvist, just because you will get 2 out of the 3 on the better power play unit. Dylan Holloway off to a little bit of a tough start so far this season, but we know how good he can be. So I kind of like that line. It's just, you don't really need them unless, like you said, you're power play stacking Edmonton in some fashion. On the Columbus side, now I agree with you as well that it's a good power play matchup for Columbus. Here's my problem. Columbus doesn't draw power plays, right? They're at 2.3 power play opportunities per game. It's last in the league. St. Louis, to their credit, doesn't, their penalty kill's not been good. I think a lot of that's honestly just been goaltending, but they also don't give up a ton of power play opportunities, 6th fewest in the league. Columbus might not get a ton of power play time tonight. I guess the counterbalance to that is that they're shooting against St. Louis goaltending. They're not going to be this bad all season, but it's how much long, I was looking the other day, remember the last season, how bad Colorado's goaltending was to start the season, that they basically completely revamped their entire organizational depth like 6 weeks into the season. St. Louis's has been worse than that. So I mean, they won't keep being this bad, but as long as they're this bad, you kind of do have to consider Columbus. And like that Columbus top line, even if it's not a great power play matchup in terms of volume, again, you're shooting against that St. Louis goaltending, and at 5-on-5, 3.5 expected goals per 60, 77 shot attempts per 60 so far this season for that top trio. Kirill Marchenko, 22 shot attempts per 60 by himself. It's like 80% higher than the league average. Dmitry Voronkov, 1.5 expected goals per 60. Like they're all doing something to contribute offensively. And I do think St. Louis is a lot better than they've shown so far this season, but it's one of those things like until the goaltending shows that it's not going to be bottom 5 in the league, why wouldn't you kind of treat it like they're bottom 5 in the league, right? So even if the St. Louis skaters are good, the goaltending's this bad, you can pick on them every single game. So I agree with you. My favorite line is Columbus 1. Columbus 2 at 12,800 is kind of interesting because they've also been good offensively anyway. 87 shot attempts, 2.8 expected goals in 65 minutes together. You only get one guy on the top power play unit, but like I said, I don't think it's really a great power play matchup for Columbus. It's only a good one because of playing against Joel Hofer. But I do think Columbus 2 is just fine. Like even Columbus 3 would kind of be in play, but again, at 9K, the only reason you would play them is if you need a cheap stack for your Edmonton power plays. So for me, I agree with you. It's Columbus 1 is easily my favorite line in this game, but I do like the Suter line just in general. And if you do need like a $10,000, $11,000 line or something like that, I think that's one you look to.
Yeah. And your point about, the Blues not taking a ton of penalties is right on. Like they've been that way for seasons. But if you're going to give Columbus even 2 opportunities, they might score twice.
It's it's like 3 shots on 2 power plays and 2 goals.
Yeah. So, yeah. Before we move on, we have a $10 super chat from Raheem. Thanks, guys, for Thursday night. Plays 4th in the $20 max Winnipeg stacks, and the Blues second line got me there. Appreciate it. Something that first of all, thank you for the super chat. Something that we always say is we don't build your lineups, you build your lineups. So, yeah, I mean, you're obviously taking some good info from us. If I swapped off a Winnipeg lineup that night, I wanted to curl up in the fetal position with the raccoons in the dumpster, but you played them, you won. Congratulations to you. Hopefully you keep rolling.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the super chat. We certainly do appreciate the support. Glad we could help out in any way. But like Josh said, we're just here to give advice based on us playing, based on the stochastic projections and ownerships and top stacks and all that. You have to build your own lineup. So congrats on that. Certainly appreciate the support. Hopefully you can have another good night here tonight.
Yeah, and I'll follow that up with, because I know there's someone in here who's going to DM me and ask me to make them a lineup for money. No, I don't do it. So thank you.
No, but he does sell feet picks for money.
No, I do. I will take feet picks. Yes. Yes. I'm Rex Ryan. Washington Capitals with a 3.2 total heading into Buffalo. The Sabres have a 3 total. This game sucks. I'm sorry. Like this game is so bad. Washington played last night, and they lost to the Islanders. They looked awful. Pierre-Luc Dubois got hurt. Dylan Strome could be back here tonight. So if Strome is back tonight, I would imagine the lines would be Strome, Ovechkin, Leonard, McMichael, Protas, Wilson. But then Buffalo completely changed their lines and power play units. Their top line is now Jordan Greenway in between Thompson and Zucker. The second line remains the same, McLeod, Tuck, Doan. And then the third line is Yuri Kulik, Jack Quinn, and Isaac Rosen, who is on the top power play unit. Isaac Rosen not in the player pool. So DK is really struggling with the player pool. Usually, yeah, Benson is out. Usually DK is pretty good with the player pool. They've been rough this season with the player pool. Both these teams have over a 3 total. And I don't have a ton of interest in stacking here. If I was going to stack anything, I think it would be Buffalo 2, McLeod, Doan, and Tuck at 14,400, 1.8% projected ownership. Or excuse me, 3.4% top two stack, 2.9% projected ownership. They've been really good this season. Their shooting percentage is a little high, but Josh Doan net front on that power play with the vaunted Isaac Rosen. I don't know what that does to the power play, but they've been pretty good at 5-on-5. Washington, generally has been a good team. They've generally been good defensively. Logan Thompson has been fine. It is Charlie Lindgren here tonight. I do like him as a backup. He had a pretty rough game against Ottawa the last time out, back-to-back on the road. So I do have some interest in Buffalo. I think it would be that second line. I think one-offing Tage Thompson is completely fine here. His shot attempts per 60 are really, really high. If you want to two-man him with Zucker for power play, sure. I don't know how long Jordan Greenway is going to last there. I feel like Yuri Kulik will move up there eventually, so I don't really want to full stack that line. The only line on Buffalo I have confidence will stick together is that second line. So would be Buffalo 2 for me. Tage Thompson one off completely fine. On the Washington side, we'll have to see if Strome is back. If he's back, it could be a pretty low-owned combination, Strome, Ovechkin, something like that. Buffalo's penalty kill's not great. I think that's really all I would do, some sort of power play stack. But we were talking about the game yesterday before the show. They had 5 power plays last night, and the same unit wasn't on the ice at all. It was different power play units every time. So I think I would just stick to one-offs and two-mans on the Washington side and Buffalo 2 for me.
Yeah. So it is weird seeing Jordan Greenway on the top line, especially considering it's only a second game back from injury. What I will say is that a couple years ago, him and Tage did play a fair bit together, and they were actually, I don't think this will shock anybody, they weren't very good offensively, but they were very good defensively. If you look at Tage and Greenway, 2.1 expected goals against in 220 minutes together at 5-on-5. Now, again, that was mostly a couple years ago. Things have changed. There's a new coach back there. But they were fairly good defensively. Now, that doesn't mean much for DFS. And again, I kind of agree with you. I don't know how long that experiment is going to last. What I will say is that this is still a Buffalo top line at 14,400, where you get 2 of the guys on the top power play unit. And, you say Charlie Lindgren, he is a solid backup. But since the start of last season, Washington's giving up a half goal per game more in his starts than in Logan Thompson's. That, it's a lot. The Buffalo power play, I don't know what kind of impact Rosen will or will not have. We should say he's not just some random prospect, right? He was the 14th overall pick 4 years ago. He has 12 points in 8 games in the AHL this season. He had 55 points in 61 games last season. So nearly a point per game player since the start of last season in the AHL at the age of 21. So, he's a fast player. So maybe that'll help him with zone entries or whatever. But I don't mind Thompson, Zucker, and Greenway at 14,400 just because they are so cheap. You can throw Rasmus Dahlin on the blue line with them. What I will say is this isn't really, it's a decent power play matchup in the sense that Washington's penalty kill is actually not that good. It's bottom 10 in the NHL, basically every metric: shots against, expected goals against, all that. They don't give up a ton of power play opportunities. Buffalo doesn't draw a ton. It's about league average both ways. But, add that to a bottom 10 penalty kill from Washington with Charlie Lindgren in net. It's not that bad of a power play spot for the Sabres. So I really don't mind just the top line. plus, throw Rasmus Dahlin on the blue line and then be on your way. I think line 2 is perfectly well in play as also. You mentioned how well they've been playing, 84 shot attempts, 5.3 expected goals in their 70 minutes together. Josh Doan, over 19 shot attempts and 2 individual expected goals by himself so far this season per 60 minutes. He's been very impactful. I do think both those lines are very much in play. I would probably lean more Buffalo 1 just because I want to get more pieces of the top power play. If you want to take out Greenway and put in Doan or something like that, I think that's perfectly fine. I'm not a huge fan of playing the Sabres tonight. I probably won't have them in my lineup, but I do think with Charlie Lindgren in net, it makes it a much better spot than it would be otherwise. On the Washington side, it's funny. We were talking before the show about their game last night. They had 4 power plays. They didn't have the same power play unit for any of the 4 power plays. The only players to play on the top unit on all 4 were Alex Ovechkin and Connor McMichael. We're assuming Dylan Strome is back tonight. If Dylan Strome is back tonight, him and Ovi have actually been pretty good offensively. 73 shot attempts, 3.7 expected goals so far this season. The Washington power play is a problem, though. A problem in a bad way. 87 shot attempts, 7.3 expected goals per 60 for the power play. Those are both well below league average, especially for a top power play unit.
Yeah, it's like the Avs at 5-on-5.
Yeah, basically, that's basically the Natchez McKinnon line. So it's not really a great power play matchup. I would probably dip down to McMichael, Wilson, and Protas. Just because, if that Greenway line is good defensively, as they were a couple of years ago, it gets them into the mushy middle. It gets them to that Owen Power pairing, and the Owen Power pairing's been pretty bad defensively. Like, that guy's just not putting it together. So I would probably go Wilson, Protas, McMichael, assuming that's the second line. So for me, in order in this game goes Buffalo 1, Washington 2, Buffalo 2.
It is pretty funny that Buffalo has been actively, publicly saying that they want to extend Alex Tuck and refuse to put him on power play 1. It's good stuff in Buffalo. Vancouver Canucks with a 2.7 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.3. I chuckle at this game just because on Thursday we were like, we don't really have interest in Kaprizov. We're completely out on Vancouver, and then Kaprizov basically scores on his first shift, and Kiefer Sherwood had a hat trick. But I will say when I get back to Minnesota's going Kaprizov, Rossi, Johansson, Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Tarasenko, Hartman, Foligno, Hinostroza. Vancouver going Pettersson, Besser, DeBrusk, Kane, Sherwood, Reichel, Kaprizov scored early in the first. He had a goal and 2 shots on goal on that shift. After that, he played 21 total minutes. He only had 2 other shots on goal. That highlights what Cliffy was talking about on Thursday. He has been struggling at 5-on-5. This line's getting a lot of ownership again. Rossi, Kaprizov, Johansson, 12.9% top 2 stack, 16.7% projected ownership. Like, I understand that Vancouver is a shell of a team right now. But, like, at that price and that ownership, I'm just going to play Columbus 1. Yes, Kaprizov can break a slate, but he has looked bad. If the ownership was way lower, I'd say, let's go take a stab at it because Kaprizov's an elite player. He could break out at any moment. But 16.7% projected when Columbus is right in that price range at 5%, fully correlated against the Blues, whose goaltending hasn't made a save since the French Revolution. It's just like, I'm going to play Columbus here. So at that ownership, I'm out. If you want to play them, that's fine. Like I just said, like Kaprizov can break a slate, but I don't really want to find out with 17% of my friends when he's been struggling. I would go to Minnesota second line, Eriksson, Ek, Boldy, Tarasenko. They are fully correlated. Not that it makes a huge difference. Minnesota's power play hasn't been powerful recently since a white-hot start. I don't love Minnesota's second line at 17,700. It's a price thing. They are coming in at 5%, so I don't mind that. I think I'd be more likely to do a Boldy one-off or something like that. So I know they have a 3.3 total. just like, yeah, you could power play stack, but if you leave off like Tarasenko and adding Kaprizov, then you're pushing like over 20,000, and that's just not something I want to do with the Wild here. So it would be Minnesota too. Don't love it. On the Vancouver side, it's like it's the same thing, right? Patterson, Besser, DeBrusque, 8% projected ownership. I just don't want to do it. Like, if Vancouver continues to burn me, they burn me. So I'm still out on Vancouver until they can string together, at least 2 games where they can show that they have something going.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing with the Canucks is Quinn Hughes is still out, right? And
yeah, it's a huge thing.
He's the engine of the whole team. Vancouver won 15,800. Like, I guess it's fine, but for $500 more, I can go play Columbus, a line that's actually playing well this season. You know what I mean? Washington too will be right in that price range if Connor McMichael is there. So, like, I don't know. Not really a big fan of the Vancouver defenseman is a different story. We'll talk about defensemen at the end of the game. I do have some interest in their blue liners. As far as the forwards go, it's like, you know what? If Kiefer Sherwood gets another hat trick, it's okay. Like, so be it. At least until Quinn Hughes is back, I don't have a ton of interest in stacking the Canucks. For me, this is about Minnesota. Now, there is a lot of ownership on that Kaprizov Rossi Johansson line because they're 15,600. You get Kirill Kaprizov in it. The thing is like, this is a pretty good power play matchup for Minnesota. Minnesota is tied for the most power play opportunities per game at 4 per game. Vancouver, meanwhile, their penalty kill just really has not been that good. By expected goals against, so far this season, they are 22nd in the league. By goals against, they are 23rd in the league. And so that's the penalty kill that is going up against a Minnesota power play, drawing the most power play opportunities per game. Now, the reason why I would have interest in Minnesota is because I think what you would probably want to do is what we said on Thursday. You have to include Kaprizov if you're stacking the Wild. He plays too many minutes and he's too vital to the power play to leave him off a stack. Like you said, then it gets expensive, right? If you use Eriksson, Boldy, and Kaprizov, it's 22,700. I think it's the pivot from Edmonton, right? Because the Oilers, we'll get to the Oilers game later. The Oilers top forwards are all like 25 to 30% projected ownership. Meanwhile, Boldy and Eriksson are at about 5%. So, like, if I'm playing a 5 max or 20 max or something like that, and I'm building mostly around the Edmonton power play and then, using a bunch of different fillers and different lineups, I might have 1 or 2 with a Minnesota power play stack as the pivot, right? So you can use the same filler stacks with the Minnesota, Eriksson, Boldy, Kaprizov stack that you would with Draisaitl, McDavid, or in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins or whatever. You can use the same secondary stacks, and it gives you a very low-owned pivot for a team drawing the most power play opportunities per game, going up against what is a fringe bottom 10 penalty kill. And Vancouver's still missing half the, let alone Quinn Hughes, they're missing half the roster, right? I think it's eight or 9. It might literally be half the starting roster is out, including the most important player. Now, Thatcher Demko. He's been one of the best goalies in the league this season. When he's healthy, he's easily a top 10 goalie, if not top 5 in the world. So that's, that can always happen where he just completely stonewalls them and Minnesota bricks. But I do think, considering how good of a power play spot it is, they are a nice pivot away from what should be a very chalky Edmonton power play stack or what have you. So I would do some sort of Eriksson, Boldy, Kaprizov stack. If you want to add in Tarasenko because of his price and power play status and all, I think that's fine. Just make it a straight up power play stack. That is my only interest in Minnesota, is like, if I want to get a low owned stack in a similar price range as Edmonton, Minnesota's a pivot.
Yeah. Also, like, like Spurgeon isn't the worst power play quarterback, but like I think you got to put Zeev back there at some point. But it's lipstick on a pig with them. Ottawa Senators with a 3.2 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 3.3. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Gallagher, Evans, Anderson, Demidov, Newhook, Kapanen, Bolduc, Doc, Veleno. Ottawa going Stützle, Batherson, Cousins, Pinto, Giroux, Amadio, Cousins, Grieg, Perron. This is an interesting one. The reason I said all four Montreal lines is because they play all four lines. It's not like the fourth line will play 7 minutes and the top guys. Like Suzuki's minutes have been fine. Their last game against Seattle, he played under 19, but that was the first time he was under 19 in like 5 minutes and 5 games or something like that. And also their price has come down. They're not like 21,000 now. They're 18,300. 15.2% top two, 7.9% projected ownership. Like they've been excellent this season. I do really like Montreal's top line here. I do worry that Marty St. Louis will only play Suzuki 18, 19 minutes, Caulfield, 17, 18, and Slavkovsky 16, 17, something like that. That's the one concern. It's a little less concerning at 18,300 compared to when they were like 20,700, but I do really like them. Ullmark's been awful. They're scratching Jordan Spence. It's just like that franchise is just, idiotic. So I do really like Montreal one here. They're fully correlated. Ottawa's penalty kill has been atrocious. So Montreal one for me. There are some Montreal depth pieces that I don't mind. But like we talked about earlier, like you don't need an $8,000, $9,000 line here unless you're just doing something insane. With Edmonton or Minnesota, I think a Deminoff one-off is fine here since he is on the top power play unit. That's probably the only depth piece that I would look at, a Deminoff one-off. On the Ottawa side, it would probably be some sort of power play stack. Like Montreal's penalty kill has been fine. There's still, the amount of penalties they've been taking have been down compared to last season. But like, I still think like the way to beat Montreal now would be on the power play. You do something like Stützle, Batherson, Grieg. It's not too expensive. Stützle, Batherson, Cousins. Something like that. Like I'm not super high on Ottawa here, despite their 3.1 road total. I think, we'll talk about defensemen at the end. I think I do really like Jake Sanderson here tonight, but for me, like I don't love these 5-on-5 lines. I think I would stick to some sort of power play stack.
Yeah. If you play Montreal tonight, I think you do have to focus on the power play guys. So that means the top line plus Demidov, just because, as you said, the Ottawa penalty kill has been struggling. I will say, and this is the honest to God's truth, a big part of the Ottawa penalty kill problem is their goalies have a 714 save percentage. That's not a mistake. I didn't misspeak. 714 save percentage. It's so that'll certainly make things look a lot worse than they probably otherwise should be. But I feel the same way about Ullmark that we were talking about with St. Louis. I don't think he's going to keep being this bad this season until he starts being better. I don't know why you wouldn't want to pick on him. So if I stack Montreal tonight, I'd probably just do a straight up power play stack because the Sens are a very, very good defensive team at 5-on-5. So far this season, 7th fewest shot attempts against per 60, 3rd fewest expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. So if Montreal has like a DFS tournament winning upside night, it's probably going to be because their power play goes like 2 for 4 or something like that, right? And so I would just do Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, add in Demidov, probably put in Hudson on the blue line, just make it a full 5-man power play stack because I feel like if Montreal really, maybe Ullmark just completely falls on his face at 5-on-5. He's done that a couple times this season already. But I do feel like if Montreal has a DFS tournament winning score, it's going to be through the power play. So I would definitely want to include the 4 power play guys. I don't think you, like you said, I don't think you really need to consider anybody else, like, unless you're just like straight up like, Draisaitl, McDavid, Bouchard, Hyman, or Nugent Hopkins or something. Like, yeah, maybe you want to do two-man of like Gallagher and Evans or Newhook and Kapanen. But for me, this is a Montreal power play game. On the Ottawa side, Montreal is going to probably be sending out the Suzuki against the Stützle line. That means the Ottawa depth lines against the depth from Montreal. And we have to be honest here with ourselves. I am a Montreal fan. These lines have not been good defensively. You do have to hang a little bit on Sam Montembeault. You can also hang a little bit on these lines just giving up a ton of shots.
You're going to miss the Dobson pairing too, which has been really good.
Yeah. So, the Montreal top line, 1.9 expected goals against per 60. The rest of the lines are a lot worse than that. So while I don't have a ton of interest in that Giroux line, or sorry, not the Giroux line, the Stützle line, I do have interest in Giroux, Pinto, and Amadio at 11,100. That has just been a very good line for Ottawa so far this season. 65 shot attempts, 3.1 expected goals per 60. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the second power play unit. And, normally secondary power play units, we're not too excited about it. But that second unit's been getting 40% of the ice time, give or take. It's not like they're 20% like in Edmonton or Washington or something like that, or 33% elsewhere. 40% is a decent chunk of the power play time. Ottawa is drawing 3.8 power play opportunities per game. It's not the most in the league, but it is 7th. So I do think there is something to Pinto, Giroux, Amadio here. If you do need a cheap stack, they're probably going to avoid that Dobson-Matheson pair, which has been Montreal's best defense pair. They're going to avoid the Suzuki line for the most part. You get decent power play minutes out of them. I think they're one of those stacks that you consider if you want to go up and play Minnesota power play or Edmonton power play or something like that. I think it's the Pinto, Giroux, Amadio line that I like the best in this game on the Ottawa side. But for me, I think if I'm stacking anything out of this game, it's the guys from the Montreal power play.
Agreed. Toronto. The Maple Leafs, hopefully they get crushed tonight and they squeeze out whatever aura they have and they give it to the Blue Jays. 3.1 total. I think everyone's rooting for the Blue Jays here tonight. No one is rooting for the Dodgers. Even people in LA aren't even rooting for the Dodgers. Maple Leafs, the 3.1 total. Heading into Philadelphia, the Flyers have a 2.9. William Nylander out again. Toronto going Matthews, Nyes, Robertson, Tavares, McMahon, Michelli. Or did they move Domi up? Or Domi's on the top?
Yeah, Domi's on the top line.
Yeah, Domi's on the top line. And then Nyes is with Tavares, right?
No.
Because our top stacks is a little still messed up.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's Nyes, Matthews, Domi.
Nyes, Matthews, Domi, and then
McMahon,
Robertson.
Tavares, Michelli.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, and Robertson down on the third line. Flyers going Tippett, Michkov, Zegras, Forrester, Cates, Brank, Konechny, Dvorak, Nikita Grabankin. Now, they did say Couturier is a game-time decision, but the way they practiced with Zegras up there makes me believe that he's going to be out. Maybe that changes. I don't know. I'm preparing that top line is going to be Zegras, Michkov, Tippett. Let's talk about Toronto here first. First of all, the game's in Philly, so Philly gets to dictate. Second, Philly plays to such a grinding, slow pace, and they're going to be sending out the Cates line against that Matthews line. In 106 minutes this season, 2.1 expected goals against per 60. They've been really, really good. I know Matthews is matchup proof, but it's not like it's Matthews, Marner's, Nyes, that line. You know what I mean? Matthews, Domi, Nyes is nice, but it's not I have confidence that they're going to run over this Flyers team that plays to such a slow pace. I just, the Matthews line is getting 11.4% projected ownership. It's just too much for me. They do have a 3.1 road total. So, probably out on that Matthews line. I think, if you want to play that Tavares, McMahon, Michelli line at 13-3, that's fine. But, I don't particularly love it. If anything, I don't even really want a power play stack. They've been good defensively. Their penalty kill has been fine. Danny Boy has been really, really good. It's just, this is a tough sell for me for Toronto. If you want to play the Matthews line, that's perfectly fine. But at that price, I'm probably just would rather play the Montreal top line. On the Flyer side, their power plays look fine. Compared to how atrocious they were last year. So, I don't mind Tippett, Michkov, Zegras at 14,300, 4% projected ownership. They're going to, avoid the Matthews line, whatever that means. They're fully correlated. Toronto's been, penalty kill hasn't been great. I don't mind them at 14,300. I feel like that ownership's a bit low because people love Zegras and he just had a massive game the other night. So maybe it's a little bit higher, but I don't mind them fully correlated. But at home, 11,600, Cates, Forrester, Brink at 11,600. They're going to see, good minutes. They're fully correlated on that second unit, which has been fine. So, the Flyers have been doing kind of a split on that power play because that Cates power play unit has been the better one. Zegras scored a couple times the other night. So for me, it would be that Cates, Forrester, Brink line. If you want to go to Michkov, Zegras, Tippett, I have no issue with it. Toronto's a tough sell for me. It's just too small or slow of a pace for Philly, and that Cates line's been very good.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing for the Leafs is the power play hasn't been good in terms of scoring. I do think they're getting a bit unlucky. The Toronto top power play units at 11.6 expected goals per 60, but shooting under 7%. It's that's not going to keep happening. The general problem is the Leafs don't draw a ton of power play opportunities, 2.6 per game, fourth lowest rate in the league. Now, Philly does take a lot of penalties, but then you have Nylander out, right? So it's they can't replace him. We've already seen them struggle, since with Mitch Marner, now in Vegas. So you take the two best after Matthews, you take the two most important pieces of the power play off. How good can it really be? So with Nylander out, with drawing so few power play opportunities, I'm not really looking at this as a power play spot for the Leafs. So I would probably avoid the Matthews line. I agree with you on that Brink line. That Brink line really does grind down the pace. 40 shot attempts for, 48 against per 60 when they're on the ice, under 90 total shot attempts per 60 when they're on the ice. That is a grindingly slow pace. Goaltending's been good as long as Erson's not in it. And I just, at 18K, I'll just go play Montreal. You know what I mean? That's just, if I want to play a line in that price range, I'll just go play the Habs. So out on them. I think Toronto 2 would be where I would go. 2.9 expected goals per 60 for Tavares and Michelli skating together. Now, a good chunk of those minutes were with Nylander, but Tavares over 1.5 expected goals per 60 individually. They're going to avoid that Brink line. I don't know if anybody's seen the defensive numbers for the Flyers with Michkov and Zegras on the ice, but they're not good. So I do think it's lining up for a decent matchup for Toronto too. I will say in general, I'm not running out to play the Leafs here tonight. It's just the Flyers are a pretty good defensive team. They've typically been good defensively over the years. It's just their goaltending was atrocious. Now we see what the Flyers look like when they actually have good goaltending. And it's kind of a nightmare for opposing teams. So basically out on the Leafs, if I do play anything, it would be Toronto too. On the Flyers side, I think I agree with you with the Cates, Brink, Forster line. They're getting good minutes. Brink at the low end's playing 16, 17 minutes. There are nights where Cates and Forster are 19 minutes. Their power play has been the better power play. the Leafs aren't giving up a ton of power play opportunities, so it's not like really a great spot for the Flyers. But if you do need a cheap filler line, 11,600, I do think it's Philly too. I'm wondering how long Tippett, Mitchkov, and Zegras actually lasts. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to make it through a whole game together? I'm not so sure about that. We do know that Forster, Cates, and Brink will. So Forster, Cates, and Brink for me is my real interest in this game. I think Toronto 2 is fine, but I'm not running out to play them.
Yeah, like if Toronto 2 was like Tavares, Nylander, and Michelli, yeah, sure. But like, spent too much time on the Leafs already. Hopefully they take one for the team so the Blue Jays can win. New Jersey Devils with a 3 total, heading into Los Angeles to see Bobby Boom. The Kings have a 3 total as well. Kings going Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Fiala, Byfield, Perry, Moore, Laferriere, Deneau. Devils, not quite sure what they're doing. They're going Hughes, Barat, Nason, Hischer, Palat, Arseni, Gritsuk, and then Meyer, Mercer, Juho, Lamiko. Why? I don't know. It's not even like Nason's on the top power play unit, and that line would be fully correlated at 17-7. He's not on the top unit, so I don't particularly love these lines. There's a shocker. I will say, like at 12,500, Hischer, Palat, Gritsuk is at least a little interesting because I've watched a couple Devils games. Arseni Gritsuk loves to shoot the puck. So like that I don't mind because he's cheap, and for cheap you want shooters, and he is one of those. Not sure what really Palat brings to the table on that line, but 2-man of Hischer and Gritsuk I think is fine. A 2-man of Hughes and Bratt, fine. 2-man of Mercer and Meyer, honestly fine. Like Juho Lamiko doesn't look like he's not like a super like epic prospect or anything, and he's not a great DFS player, but I think he can hold his own in between those two. But I think on the Devil side, it'd be Hischer and Gritsuk for me. On the Kings side, like this is a tough power play matchup. Not that, the Kings power play unit is why we stack the Kings. Like it's not. I think, I would probably just go to Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, 16,100. 5.6% top 2 stack, 4.8% projected ownership. Maybe, you catch the Devils a little unprepared with these new lines or something like that. But like generally they're a good defensive team. Generally they have an excellent penalty kill. The goaltending has been fine. I think Markstrom is back. So, I don't love this game from a single entry perspective. It's more of, 20 max to 150 for me.
Earlier when I was talking about Minnesota, I said like they're kind of like the low on pivot if you want an expensive stack and get away from Edmonton. I think New Jersey is the other one as well, because this is a pretty good power play spot for the Devils. New Jersey's top power play unit, we've said it over and over, as long as Dougie Hamilton is running it, is really, really good. And he is running it mercifully. They're not screwing with that just yet. But New Jersey Devils, 14.6 expected goals per 60 with Dougie Hamilton on the power play. That's their actual goal rate is nearly just as high. It's a great top power play unit. The Los Angeles Kings, they're giving up the 4th most power play goals per game, and a lot of that is because they're giving up the 2nd most power play opportunities per game. This is a really good power play spot for New Jersey, and I feel the same way about New Jersey that I do about Montreal, is that if they have a DFS tournament winning score tonight, it's because the top power play brings the hammer down. Now, one problem I have is I honestly don't know what's going on with Jesper Bratt. Sometimes when I see players whose stats look off, I'll go look at NHL Edge to see if there's any change in their skating speed, because sometimes that's an indicator of some sort of injury. We've talked about that in the past with Elias Pettersson. There doesn't seem to be anything with that for Bratt, but I think it's 8 of his last 9 games he's played under 17 and a half minutes. This is a guy who a couple years ago was at 3 shots per game. He's down to 1.7 now. He's lost over 2 minutes per game of ice time compared to last year. Like, he's basically being treated like a second liner, even though he's skating on the top line and top power play with Jack Hughes. It's wild. So I think, considering what he's done so far this year, that Bratt is overpriced at 6,600, but I don't know how you leave him out, considering his role next to Hughes at 5-on-5 and his role next to Hughes on the power play, considering how good of a power play stack this is. At the very least, I would probably do a Hughes, Hischier, Dougie Hamilton stack if I want to play a low-owned, expensive stack here tonight, because I think you can make the argument that even with Edmonton facing Chicago, that New Jersey's in the best power play spot of any team on the board here tonight, just because the Kings give up so many opportunities because New Jersey's power play is so good. It's just a matter of who you want to include. I would start with at least Hischier and Hughes and then kind of work my way from there. Whether you want to add Bratt, like I said, I think he's wildly overpriced at 6,600. If you look at the point per dollar projections for Jesper Bratt, 1.29 fantasy points per $1,000. That is horrific. Like, generally you want to be like at least 1.7 to 1.8 at least, if not higher. 1.29 is pretty terrible. But again, considering his position, I don't know how you leave him off. I do like a New Jersey power play stack if you want to avoid chalky Edmonton. On the Kings side, like, I guess it would be Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar. But again, like, New Jersey, we talk about how bad the Kings penalty kill is. The Devils are pretty much the opposite. So far this season, they have a top 10 penalty kill. They're about league average for times shorthanded per game. So, like, they don't give up a ton of power play opportunities, a little bit worse than league average. So, like, I guess it would be Kings 1. I can't bring myself to playing a Corey Perry line. I'm sorry. So I guess it would be LA 1, but honestly, I think my interest in this game is on the New Jersey side.
Yeah, Corey Perry in a Kings jersey is just weird. But I do kind of agree with that power play stack. Could put in our boy Dawson Mercer coming off a 2 power play goal game against the Sharks. But
I mean, Mercer's $2,000 cheaper than Bratt, and I'm not sure that Mercer's just straight up not a better play now. So,
yeah, we just locked in 37.5 from Bratt tonight, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Let's talk about the Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks, they 2.5 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.5 total. Edmonton going McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Mangiapane. Draisaitl, Roslovic, Podkolzin. Chicago going Bedard, Burakovsky, Green, Donato, Mikheyev, Doc, Nazar, Teravainen, and Bertuzzi. David Tomasek out for Edmonton. They said that Jack Roslovic will be playing the net front on the power play. Jack Roslovic. Jack Roslovic's the size of my Chihuahua. It's like, that is not someone who I thought would ever be a net front, but here we are. Jack Roslovic also only $3,400. So if you stacked McDavid, Draisaitl, Roslovic, it's what, $20,900. And we just talked about it the other night. Like, it's the best power play spot on the board. Winnipeg took full advantage of it. The problem is, like, there is massive amounts of ownership here. Edmonton 1, 20.3% projected. Edmonton 2, 22.5% projected. I don't want to say that Edmonton power play is bad, because it's certainly not bad. But, like, when Hyman does come back, it's going to get so much better. He is, we talk about the elite net fronts like, Josh Doan, Chris Kreider. I'm sure I'm missing someone and someone's going to get mad. But, like, Zach Hyman is one of the best net fronts in the NHL. He just scores most of his goals in the crease area. I do worry about this power play. I don't necessarily worry about it tonight. The problem is just the ownership. So I think what I would do if you're worried about ownership is just stack all 5 guys. McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Roslovic, Bouchard. We talked about the other games. There are lots of cheap value. The Suter line. There's, cheap guys in Montreal. If you're worried about it, the ownership, you just put in all 5. Like just going McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, not sneaky at all. It doesn't matter that you're going across 2 lines. Like that 3-man trio is going to be owned. McDavid, Draisaitl, Roslovic, that's going to be owned. You just go all 5 guys if you're worried about the ownership. If you're not worried about it, you can do 3, 4-man stacks. Obviously, you'd put in McDavid, Draisaitl, and go from there. For me, if I'm playing Edmonton tonight, I think it's all 5 or bust. Haven't built yet, obviously, but on the Chicago side, I'm probably out here. Like, I know we love a good "Here Comes the Oiler" GIF fest on Twitter, but like they're good defensively. They got a good penalty kill. Their goalies aren't the Blues goalies, so I'm generally out on Chicago here.
Yeah, the Edmonton power play has been good. I mean, we shouldn't, we shouldn't get lost with that. The problem is that they don't draw a ton of power play opportunities, right? That was a problem for them last year. It's a problem for them again this year. 2.75 power play opportunities per game. It's tied for the 5th lowest number in the league. The good news for tonight is they're playing the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Chicago Blackhawks are giving up the most power play opportunities per game of any team in the league at 4.3. It's a full power play more than the league average. It's bad. And while Chicago's penalty kill has actually been solid, a big part of that's been Spencer Knight. And we saw, no pun intended, the other night what happens when he's not playing out of his mind great, right? They got absolutely just, the net got filled. There's no problem with playing Edmonton today. It's one of those, like, just play the best plays, you idiot. That's just kind of how I feel about this, is like Edmonton has the highest total. Chicago's giving up a ton of power plays. They're not good defensively at 5-on-5. They're due for even more regression than they've already seen. Edmonton's due for some positive regression. Like, they're all shooting, like a lot of them are shooting fairly meager percentages. There's no problem with playing Edmonton here tonight. I think I kind of agree with you that if I play the Oilers, I treat them like I did Montreal. And it's like, I just full on stack the entire power play. Like you said, there are plenty of cheap spots across the board. We went over cheap spots in St. Louis, Montreal, Philadelphia. We'll talk about more in the next game even, that you can get to and play the entire top power play for the Edmonton Oilers. So listen, like, there is a lot of ownership on the Oilers. They do have the 2 highest projected forwards on the board here tonight, and they have the 3rd highest projected defenseman on the board. They are the best play. It's just, do you want to play them at 25-30% ownership? Most of them. Evan Bouchard's a lot lower. I think he's around 10% at the last update. Do you want to play them at that high ownership? And do you have a secondary stack that you want to fit with them? Those are really the only questions that you want to answer, or that you need to ask and answer for yourself. On the Chicago side, I mean, listen, I'm not going to cross off the Blackhawks. And the reason I'm not crossing off the Blackhawks is because they're playing against Edmonton's goaltending, and Edmonton's goaltending can just completely fall apart on any given night. I guess I would play Bedard, Burakovsky, and Green. But here's the thing, is like, the Edmonton top line has generally been good at controlling the play. Chicago's hasn't. 13,200, like, I guess they're fine. The thing is like, there are other low-owned spots. Like, we talked about the Buffalo second line earlier. They're under 3% in the same price range. The Columbus second line we talked about earlier, they're at 5% in the same price range. So, like, I don't know why you would need a sub 1% Chicago when there's like 3 to 5% lines sitting right there. So I don't know. I don't really hate the idea of playing the Blackhawks because they're shooting against the Oilers, but there are low-owned lines, better lines elsewhere on the slate that I would rather play.
Burakovsky had a nasty goal the other night.
Yeah, that between the legger. Yeah.
Before we get to the last game here, we have a $9.99 super chat from Bobby Boom. Not a 69 cents or 9. He usually ends it in 69. I'm a bit concerned about his health here. This might be a cry for help. But thank you for the super chat. Got in on the Chop Thursday night NFL Showdown. So I think that was like 14,000? Your favorite 2% stack in GPPs. We are very grateful for every show. You guys are the real goats. Thanks, boys. Go Doyers. I know you're from LA. You have rooting interest for the Dodgers. But yeah, thank you for the super chat. I was looking through the stacks while Cliffy was talking. There isn't really one like around 2% that I love particularly, but a low-owned stack that I do like tonight. They're under 5%. Columbus won for me.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to go with a cheaper stack, and even though they're not my favorite line in the game, I'll go with Stützle, Batherson, Cousins, just because you get two guys on the power play. Sam Montembeault, he's not been good to start the year. He's starting tonight. Like if he doesn't turn it around, it could be another one of those 4 or 5 goal games. So I'll go with Ottawa 1.
Let's talk about the team and the line with the highest top 2 stack percentage on the board. Yeah, baby. New York Rangers with a 2.9 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 2.6 total. Capo Caco back in the fold for Seattle here tonight.
They said officially it's a game time decision, but it feels like he's definitely going to be playing.
Yeah. Rangers are loading up the top line. Panarin, Zibanejad, Miller. Then Lafreniere, Cooley, Laba. No need to go any further. Seattle. I guess I'll read them off. Beniers, Eberle, Catton, Schwartz, Stevenson, Tolvanen, Marchment, Wright, and they're projecting Kakko on that line. Here's the thing with Seattle is like all of these lines have been bad offensively. It's not like they're like 11-7 and they're playing 13 minutes, but they've been really good and you just really want them to capitalize on their minutes. They've all been kind of shit. So it's like I don't really know if I want to play. Like I never want to play Seattle anyway. I guess like if Kakko is back and he's next to Wright and Marchment, that would be the line at 10,900. But this is the last game on the slate, and I'm certainly not hinging my night on waiting for Capo Kakko news. So like if you want to play Seattle and you want to do that, go for it. I'm not super thrilled about, Seattle here. Like I'm not playing a Stevenson line. That line's been under 2 expected goals for per 60. The Beniers Eberle line with Catton is under 2 expected goals per 60. It would be the right line, but again, like I'll just go play this P.S. Suter line. On the Rangers side, they're loading up the top line with Miller, Zibanejad, and Panarin. They're 20,100, 18.8% top 2 stack, 8.9% projected ownership. I'm not really sure if I want to play this line. Like, I do like the idea of them loading it up like this. I just don't know how good it's gonna be because like we've had issues with Panarin and Zibanejad since they've both been on the Rangers. It doesn't matter who the coach is. Like maybe JT Miller can bring them together, but like at that price, like I can go play Montreal for almost $2,000 less. I could do like a McDavid, Draisaitl, Roslovic for $800 more. Can power play stack Minnesota. So, like, I do like them, but I am a little bit worried about the price. I will say, and I don't think I'm going to get there tonight, but I will shout out the Laba Cooley Lafreniere line at 11K just because, like, I think that is going to be a good forechecking line and that they can, like, wreak havoc in front of the net. I just, maybe maybe I get there. But again, with the same thing with Seattle, I'd rather just go play the PS Suter line. I know they finished the game last time with these lines, but there isn't much history there. So I'd rather just go play established lines and better matchups is basically what I'm getting at. But I do like the Rangers in a nutshell. I just like other spots better.
Yeah. I think one reason why you might want to play the Rangers is the Seattle penalty kill. Earlier, I talked about the Senators having a 714 save percentage. The Kraken are at 690. It's on the penalty kill. It's kind of unreal. Seattle's been pretty good defensively at 5-on-5. That's one thing that's kind of holding me back. But they have been using the Chandler Stevenson line at times as the shutdown line. And they're very bad. 71 shot attempts against per 60. So, that Rangers top line is perfectly correlated on the power play. Seattle penalty kill has been bad, but it's all been goaltender driven. Like if you look at the Seattle PK numbers, they're based like shot attempts against, expected goals against, shots against, like that kind of stuff. It's basically league average. It's just the save percentage is like 200 points lower than the league average, which is kind of nuts. That'll get better. So, and otherwise the Seattle goaltending, I shouldn't say the Seattle goaltending. Otherwise,
Decord has been great.
Joey Decord's been really good. Yeah. So, I don't know. Like if I'm going to pay 20,000 over 20K for a line, go play expensive Edmonton. And if you want to do a low owned 20K plus line, we talked about Minnesota, we talked about New Jersey. I think I'm just kind of out on that, on the Rangers. Like of the 20K plus stacks, $20,000 plus stacks, like they'd be 4th out of 4 for me. So, I'm just kind of out on the Rangers in general. On the Seattle side, like I think there is merit to playing Marchment, Wright, and Kakko, and the basic reason being that they're perfectly correlated on the second power play unit. Not that you really want to stack Seattle because of any sort of power play prowess. And the Rangers don't give up a ton of power play opportunities as it is, but it's still a perfectly correlated line. Get at under 11K. So, if you want to play expensive Edmonton, if you want to play expensive Minnesota or New Jersey or whatever, that line doesn't have great numbers, but we'll see what happens when they add Kakko to it. I think Wright, Kakko, Marchment is my favorite line in this game. I don't have a ton of interest in the forwards in this game in general.
Is it grubby? They did not confirm a goalie. I'd be shocked if it wasn't Decor because they don't play tomorrow. Yeah,
they haven't confirmed their goalie yet. Seattle,
they
haven't played since Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is that? I think they played against Montreal on Tuesday, and then they don't play tomorrow. So I don't know why Decord wouldn't start.
Yeah. Let's talk about defensemen here. At the top of the board, Werenski, Bouchard, Rasmus Dahlin, Jake Sanderson, Dougie Hamilton, Adam Fox. Those are the guys 6K and up. I have no issue with Zach Werenski here at 7,700. I think he makes a lot of sense with Columbus One stacks because he goes out like 60% of the time with them. Bouchard, obviously in a great power play spot here. I do like Jake Sanderson here tonight. Even if I don't particularly love Ottawa, he's been playing big minutes. The price is fine, so I like him. Dougie Hamilton, another one that I do really like. Last year he was only playing like 17, 18 minutes. This year he's, 20, 21, which is nice. So that's nice. Like Fox is fine, but I think in the top range, it would be Werenski, Bouchard, Sanderson, Dougie for me.
Yeah, there are 6 defensemen, unless I'm not able to count up to the number 6. There are 6 defensemen priced over at 6K or better here tonight. Zach Werenski is top by overall fantasy projection, but the best point per dollar projection goes to Dougie Hamilton. Because of shot volume, B, because we said earlier, it's a really good power play spot for the Devils. I would still have Werenski number 1 just because, we do want fantasy points and there are a lot of cheap players on the board here tonight. So I would go Werenski, Bouchard, then Hamilton. But Werenski, Bouchard, Hamilton, and Sanderson, I agree, I think are all fairly solid plays, depending what else you want to do with your lineups. I probably wouldn't just one-off Hamilton or Bouchard. Like, those seem like guys I would include in stacks with Edmonton or New Jersey, but Werenski certainly is a guy I would have no issue just putting it by himself. The mid-price range, there are some interesting options. Darnell Nurse, like, I don't know if this is necessarily the best thing for him to be doing, but he's at 2.4 shots per game. Again, he was at around 2.4 shots per game last season. And he's doing that with less ice time. So, like, he's shooting the puck quite a bit. Darnell Nurse, I think, is fine. Colton Parayko is not blocking very many shots this season. I'm not really sure why, but Columbus is a team that takes a lot of shots. So Colton Parayko for St. Louis at 4,200, I think, makes a lot of sense. Thomas Chabot, he gets a good amount of ice time. If you don't want to play an expensive Sanderson, I think going to Chabot is fine. Lane Hudson doesn't project super well, but I think if you play a Montreal stack, you definitely include him. The slightly more expensive guys, there aren't really a lot that I really want to play. Like Jacob Chychrun, I guess, is fine. But like Jake Wallman's over 5K. At that point, I just go play Bouchard. Brandon Montour, not really in a great spot. So, like, I think like Nurse, Parayko, Chabot, Hudson in your power play stacks. For the cheaper guys, Philip Hronik, like, I don't really like Vancouver, but he's going to get a ton of minutes and he's still in the top power play unit, and Minnesota's penalty kill is pretty bad. So it is what it is. Alex Carrier from Montreal, he's getting over 21 minutes a game of late. They're basically just playing their top four defensemen. Brant Clark.
Listen to your rant.
Yeah, we talked the other day about him needing more ice time, and he cracked 20 minutes in that game. He had 4 shots and 4 blocks. So, like, Brant Clark certainly has to be considered. Justin Falk, I don't really like him as a player in general, but it's the same thing as Parayko, where, like, Columbus, I mean, listen, he's not very good. Where, like, Columbus takes a lot of shots, and Falk actually does like to block shots, so Falk makes sense. Tyler Myers from Vancouver, just because he does get a ton of ice time as well, and Matthias Samuelsson for Buffalo, facing a Washington team that is one of the highest shot volume teams in the league. Under 3K, Marcus Pettersson, Braden Schneider, Brett Kulak, Connor Timmins. Those are the 4 guys.
The reason I was laughing was because Justin Falk, don't really like the player. Reminds me of Hansel from Zoolander. Sting's a hero of mine. Don't really listen to his music. Respect what he does.
Yeah.
The one I'll just add, it's not like a huge thing for me, but like if you are playing that Cates line, Cam York's been playing like 25 minutes a night. And he is on that power play unit, so he's 3,500. Don't mind the yam. Let's talk about goalies. I know you're running out to play 8,500 Stewie Skinner here. It's Jesus Christ, man. I guess in the top range, it would be Jack Reeves or Igor Shesterkin for me. I don't love spending over 8K for a goalie, especially when Stuart Skinner is the top option. Like, I guess Gustafson's fine. He hasn't been great this season so far, but like 8,400 is a little tough to swallow. Igor at 8,200 is probably where I would go. I guess the Lars at 8K is also fine. In the mid-range, like, it would probably be either side of the Devils game, like Markstrom or Kemper. Don't particularly love it. If I'm spending down, probably Danny Vladar, Vladash, whatever you go with. I don't know. I guess like if they do start to cord, he would be the guy for me in that low range. Like, I don't really want to play Joel Hofer or Spencer Knight. He is under 7K. So like if you had to do it, you could, but like if I was down in that nitty gritty, I'd find the $100 for Demko or the $300 for Decord. Yeah.
I feel pretty somewhat confident saying that my goalie is going to come out of that Rangers Kraken game, one side or the other. Igor Shesterkin, he's at the top of the board for DK fantasy points projections on Stokastic here tonight. and top by point per dollar value. Number 2 by point per dollar value is Joey Daccord. So like I feel pretty confident depending if I need a cheap goalie, I'll take Daccord. If I have the salary, I'll take Shesterkin. Other than that, there aren't really a ton of guys I have interest in. Like Thatcher Demko at 7K stands out. Not because he's necessarily in a great spot. Like he's still missing half his roster. But it's one of those games where like if Vancouver wins, it's not because they, blew out Minnesota 7-1 or something. It's going to be because Thatcher Demko was great in net, So like I don't mind Demko at 7K. I suppose Jet Greaves at 8,300 is fine. Just because Columbus does give up quite a bit of volume and you don't really have to worry about the St. Louis power play. But if I want to play Greaves, if I have money to play Greaves at 8,300, I'll probably just play Shesterkin at 8,200. So yeah, Shesterkin, Daccord, maybe Demko if you need a 7K goalie.
We should be back on Monday. It's 4 games. We'll have to see. I mean, I would imagine unless the GPPs are absolute crap, we should be back. But who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
You know what? Obviously cheering on my Toronto Blue Jays tonight. I am feeling homerish, so I will say Ivan Demidov.
There you go. I wanted to just say Isaac Rosen because he's not in the player pool, but I'll actually give you someone actually you can roster here tonight. Listen, like this guy should get national attention. He doesn't. He's an elite player, Kirill Marchenko.
Ooh, I like it. We don't mind Columbus here tonight.
Yep. We will see you guys probably Monday, definitely Tuesday. We appreciate you hanging out with us on this Saturday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Let's win some money on puck and go Blue Jays.
Go Blue Jays is right. Good luck tonight, everyone.